The note was folded between the pages of an old travel guide, its edges softened by years of being opened and closed. Jonah found it while dusting the shelves of the bookshop he had run for 35 years. "Dad, I need you to sell the shop. I have an opportunity and I can't miss it. I'll come back and take care of you." The handwriting was his daughter Mira's. Hurried, hopeful, the same slant she used when she was a child scribbling stories in the margins. Jonah set the guide down and looked around the shop. The narrow aisles of paperbacks, the window display of local poets, the battered armchair where regulars read the morning paper. The shop had been his life. He had opened it after his wife died, and in its quiet corners he had found company in strangers who became friends. He thought of the ledger where he kept notes about customers' tastes, the little bell above the door that chimed like a greeting, and the shelf of books Mira had once loved. The request felt like a fissure through the familiar pattern of his days. Mira lived in another country and called rarely, always with news of projects and plans. When she asked for the shop's sale, Jonah felt the old ache of wanting to help. He imagined them reunited, Mira steady and successful, the two of them sharing tea in the back room while he told her about the new arrivals. After nights of turning the idea over like a page, he agreed. He listed the shop, signed the papers, and wrapped the keys in a handkerchief he had kept since his wedding. The buyer was a developer who wanted to turn the space into a cafe chain. The sale was quick. The money arrived in a single transfer. Jonah packed a small bag, left a note for the new owners about the plants by the window, and took a train to the city where Mira lived. He pictured her waiting at the station, smiling, apologizing for the delay, promising to make everything right. At the arrivals hall, Jonah watched families reunite and friends embrace. Mira did not appear. Messages went unanswered. When she finally called, her voice was thin with shame. "Dad, I'm sorry," she said. "I used the money to cover debts. I thought I could fix it. I didn't mean to hurt you." The apology was real, but it did not mend the hollow feeling in Jonah's chest. He had given away the place where he had learned to listen to people's stories. He had given away the small rituals that shaped his mornings. He returned home with a small suitcase and a heavier silence. The neighborhood looked the same. Bicycles leaned against the lamppost. The florist arranged peonies on the corner. But Jonah felt unmoored. Word spread quietly. The bookshop's owner had sold his life's work and come back with nothing. People remembered how Jonah had stayed open late for students during exam week, how he had read to children on rainy afternoons, how he had lent books to neighbors without asking for anything in return. Help arrived in small, steady gestures. The local cafe offered him a table to sit at and a pot of tea each morning. Former customers organized a weekend market in the square to raise funds. Hand-bound journals, second-hand novels, knitted scarves, and jars of jam. A retired carpenter volunteered to build a small shelf in the community center where Jonah could keep a modest selection of books. The library lent him a folding table for story hours. The actions were not dramatic. They were practical and warm, like the way a well-loved book fits into your hands. The market was a modest success. People bought books and crafts, and the money paid for a tiny room above the tailor's shop where Jonah could sleep and store a few boxes. More importantly, it brought him back into the rhythm of the neighborhood. He began to run a weekly reading hour at the community center, bringing a handful of titles and a soft voice. Children came with sticky fingers and bright eyes. Teenagers came to study under the lamp. Older neighbors came to exchange news and to borrow a novel for the weekend. Mira called sometimes, her voice softer and more careful. Jonah listened and set boundaries. Forgiveness, he told her once, was not a single sentence but a practice. Show up, be honest, and do the small things that prove you mean what you say. She began to visit when she could, first awkwardly, then more steadily. She swept the floor, shelved books, and learned the names of regulars. The repair between them was slow, measured in returned calls, in the way she stayed for the reading hour, in the small tasks she took on without being asked. Months passed. Jonah's new routine took shape. The community center shelf grew into a modest lending library. A local teacher donated a box of children's books. A young artist painted a mural of a tree whose branches were made of open pages. Jonah kept a photograph of the old shop in his wallet, a reminder of what he had lost and of the life he had once led. He still missed the creak of the shop's floorboards and the smell of old paper, but he found a different kind of belonging. People who had shown up when he needed them, and a new space where stories were shared. One evening, as the sun set and the square emptied, Jonah walked past the building that had once been his shop. The windows were bright with a different light now, and a line of people waited for coffee. He felt a complex tenderness, grief for what was gone, and gratitude for what remained. He had learned that home can be rebuilt in unexpected places, that trust can be mended by steady, honest acts, and that community is often the quiet work of many hands. When Mira stayed for a week and helped organize a small book swap, Jonah watched her hand a paperback to a child and explain why the story mattered. He felt the slow return of something like peace. The relationship between them would not be the same as before, but it was being remade page by patient page. Jonah kept reading aloud on Wednesday nights, and people came to listen. The bell above the community center's door was not the same as his old shop's chime, but it sounded like welcome, and that, he decided, was enough to begin again.